Thank you, John, and thank you all for joining and learning a little bit more today about the 2026 Supplemental Benefits Program through RELAC. We launched this program last year, and it's been a great program for all of the participants, and we hope that you'll consider it. So my job today is to walk you through the program, answer any questions you might have, and just kind of help you understand why would this program make sense for you or for your family members. One of the great things about supplemental benefits is that they're there and specific to you and your family and built by RELAC, but we'll talk a little bit about what is a supplemental benefit today, because I know that's a question many of you probably joined to find out. We'll answer questions like, how do I sign up? How much does this cost? I have Lacera benefits, so how do these work with those? And if I just have questions that I want to get answered, where can I go? So my job today is to walk you through all of that, and hopefully by the end you've got a little bit more clarity on what supplemental benefits are, and so that you can make a decision for you and your family. Um, one of the things that we always like to make sure everyone's aware of is that, you don't have to go this alone. So when RELAC built this program, one of the great things they did was they set up the RELAC Benefits Center. And this is it's a group of counselors that are built to answer any question you may have. And that could be, what is this benefit? How does it work with my Lacera benefit plan that I have? How do I pay for these benefits, and what do they cost? And so please know that that's set up from 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday through Friday. And there are all kinds of other great resources that you can use outside of just this webinar to learn more about these products. The first one is the benefit guide, the RELAC benefit guide. It's available if you text guide to the number shown below, or you can text benefits as well to the number shown below, and they'll send you information. If you're not, a text person, that's okay. There's also a website that's linked below, and you can go in there and play around and watch videos and do different things that can help you better understand the benefits. And then lastly, again, you can always call the RELAC Benefit Center anytime with a question on an existing policy you might have or one that you're considering getting. So we really think it's a great resource, and please keep it in mind. So let's start with this program that we have available now. And again, it was launched as of January 1, 2025. So it was new, but we've had a great first year. And some of the common questions that we've gotten are, who's the benefit carrier? So that's an easy one. We've used MetLife, and you may have heard of MetLife. They're an A-rated, enormous insurance carrier who RELAC was able to negotiate with and really get a deep discount on their products and be for RELAC members. So these products are going to be a lot less expensive for you and your family than if you were to go out and try to get them on your own. The another nice thing about using MetLife is you have one easy member portal. So once you do select products, you just have one portal you go in, and you can get your policy numbers and information and all that great stuff when you need to actually use the products. One of the really great things is that, questions we get a lot is, when can I sign up? And the good news is you can sign up year round. So you could watch this webinar today, say, you know what, I really like the look of that. Call the RELAC Benefits Center, and they could actually get you signed up on the first of the next month. So that's a great program. Another question we get is, how do I pay for these? Do I write a check? Do I pay via credit card? Well, what we've done to make things really easy for all of the RELAC members is this, when you select a benefit, if you select a benefit, that premium that you would owe MetLife for those products would actually just be deducted out of your Lacera check each month. So you would see a deduction like you may see for other things that you participate in, and that would actually come right out. So you wouldn't have to do a whole lot of separate payments. You wouldn't have to really just, approve the deduction to come out of your Lacera check. And really, this whole program only exists because of the power of your RELAC membership and your RELAC organization. So they took the power of all the LA County retirees that are RELAC members and went to MetLife and really got a great deal for you to consider. So please consider taking advantage of that pricing, as well as the great plans that we're going to cover here in a moment. Um, you know, why should you consider this program? We talked about it a little bit about the RELAC Benefits call center. That's always there. So even after you select a plan, you can call that at any time with questions that you have or issues you may be running into. So it doesn't just help you sign up, but it's there to support you throughout the way, just like RELAC. And the other thing is, these benefits are really important. They can really help kind of fill in any gaps your current benefit plans may have, and we'll talk about what those gaps could look like. But they're really there to support you and your family for these unintended medical expenses or other expenses in life that really can pop up. And because, again, you're a RELAC member, you're getting these at really discounted rates than what you'd see in the marketplace, and the convenience of being able to deduct those premiums out of your Lacera paycheck. So, so let's start diving into the benefits. So the first benefit that we're proud to offer is the dental supplemental plan. So you may be saying to yourself, well, hold on a minute, I have a dental plan. I have a dental plan through Lacera. I have a dental plan through, another area. Well, dental plans are tricky because what you maybe have experienced is dental plans are maybe great for that kind of day-to-day service and you can use them. But if you have a major expense, oral surgery, a root canal, or a crown, a lot of times the dental plans you have will run out of benefit and you kind of have to wait until the next plan year for them to kind of reload. So what many do is they buy a dental supplemental plan to really fill in the gaps. So think of it as, your first line of defense could be your Lacera dental plan, but that may hit a ceiling and run out of benefit. And from there, this MetLife policy would kick in and pay the additional amounts that you would normally have to come out of pocket for. So it's sort of like having a secondary dental plan that's there and got your back. And what that does is it really helps kind of support you so that you can go into that dentist and know, even if I had a major procedure, I'm very likely not going to have to come out of my pocket. If anyone's been to a dentist, they probably have had that experience where they said, you know what, my dental plan just didn't cover everything. And so this supplemental plan is supplements that dental plan that you already have and works in congruence with it. So we've actually heard a lot of great stories from members already where previously they'd had something like a root canal or crown, and they've had to go in, and previously they'd had to come out of pocket quite a bit, several hundred to, even over thousands of dollars. And when they bought the product, the supplemental benefit plan, they were able to go in and now say, my dentist actually said that that secondary plan picked up my piece that I do. So the premiums are on the page, and again, the Benefit Center can help walk you through those, but those are there on a monthly basis. And if you were interested, you could cover either yourself or you and your spouse, or if you still had any kiddos you covering, you could cover them as well. So, really take a look at this because we've, heard a lot of members saying that dental, expenses have really started to mount up, and it could be a great program to consider. One of the important things to also touch on as I go through each of these programs is you don't have to buy them all. You can look at each one and say, I like this one, but not that one. So I'll buy, just one policy. And so you're not locked into all of them. You can actually go program by program and pick the one that's best for you. Second one is vision. So as we also know, vision plans like dental plans, they can run out of benefit as well. So you may have a, front line of defense vision plan through Sarah or one of your other, providers, but that's going to run out of benefit. And so this vision plan can really help add a secondary allowance, a secondary layer of coverage. If you're getting a certain number of vision exams, but you need more, you can also, get a $10 vision exam through this program. Really inexpensive premiums, you'll see $5 to $10 a month. But if you've had any vision expenses, you're buying different lenses or frames, that those expenses can mount up quick. So if you need those and want some extra support in that vision area, consider the MetLife Vision Plan through RELAC. The next benefit is a one that unfortunately, people have to take advantage of, but it is something that we know is if you go into the hospital, regardless of your underlying medical plan, there are going to be other expenses that could come your way. That could be something like a deductible that you have to meet under your current medical plan. That could be copays. That could be things like, you have to bring in a family to come take care of you, and they've got to get lodging and things like that. And so the great thing about the hospital benefit plan is if you were unfortunately hospitalized in an inpatient setting, it will pay out a flat fee to you. And again, cash comes to you, a check comes to you in the mail for that initial admission, and then you'll get an additional amount for each day you remain in the hospital. So if you were hospitalized, you would get, and you were on the high plan, you'd get $1,000 check plus $200 per day you were in the hospital. So this can add up to significant money, but we know that that's important because when you do go into a hospital, there are all kinds of life expenses that come up. Big question we get on the hospital benefit plan and some of these others is, okay, but do this have to coordinate with my Lacera benefit? Am I going to have to show that to Kaiser and they're going to take some of that money? The answer is no. All you have to do is work with your MetLife group, through your portal and show them that you were in a hospital, and then they will trigger the claim payment to you. That money comes to you, and then you can choose to do with it whatever you like. And usually a lot of times you have expenses that have piled up from that hospital stay, and that will give you a little bit of relief. You'll notice there's two plans. There's a low plan, which pays out a $500 initial admission benefit plus $100 per day, and the premiums are a little lower on that one. But if you want a little more coverage, you could buy the high plan, and that gives you a $1,000 initial payment upon your admission to the hospital, and then, $200 per day. So if you think or have been in the hospital in the past, and you think, that could happen to me again, and that was a pretty expensive experience I went through, consider this benefit. It doesn't matter what kind of underlying medical insurance you have, or if you even technically have medical insurance, this will make that payment to you just as long as you can show that you were hospitalized in the first place. So to kind of drive that home a little bit more, here's a couple of examples. The first one is a scenario where a member had a heart attack and unfortunately had to spend 10 days in the hospital. So under their health plan with Lucera, they had an $850 out of pocket. Still, the Lucera plan picking up the majority of it, but they still had the $850, whether that was their deductible, out of pocket expense, they still owed that portion. And so they bought the low plan, and the MetLife payout was $1,500. So one of the questions we had a lot is, well, hold on. On my medical plan, I only had 850 out of pocket. Does MetLife only give me 850? The answer is no. They pay out the full amount under the benefits. So in this case, the MetLife plan paid out $1,500 for that hospital stay, and the member actually netted an additional $650 in their pocket. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean you didn't have other expenses outside of just your medical plan that came up from that hospital stay. So that $650 goes in your pocket, and you do whatever you'd like with it. Example two is a member gets in a car accident, so a much more kind of expensive situation. It spends 15 days in an ICU, really serious injuries. In that case, their out-of-pocket costs, life, medical plan, et cetera, was $2,500, and they were on the high hospital plan. So just like the previous example, that MetLife plan pays that member $4,000 for the 15 days in the ICU. And as a result, the member again pockets $1,500. So they are getting to keep that difference, but that amount, that $4,000 is really there because, they had a lengthy hospital stay. And then the final example is, less extensive. We have surgical complications, 5 days in the hospital on the low plan, $1,500 out of pocket. The MetLife plan has $1,500 benefit. And so the nice thing is the member comes out of pocket $0 in that example. But the important thing of these examples, and you'll see them as we go throughout, is MetLife pays you that, cash payment, and they don't necessarily care how much your out-of-pocket costs were, that they pay based off the benefit plan itself. And sometimes that can be more than what you actually came out of pocket. And MetLife understands that that's how that works. So the next benefit is the accident benefit. So unfortunately, we all have accidents, right? Whether that's I trip and fall, I break a bone, I'm playing pickleball with my friends and I tear my knee, I burn myself on the stove, and I have to go to the ER, or I have to go get x-rays done, or whatever it is. Those kind of things are just part of life. And so the MetLife accident plan is a separate benefit, and it covers any accidents that come up from the time you buy the policy. And that could be something like, you break a bone, and there's a set amount of money that would be paid to you for that break. Depends on which bone broke, right? It can be anywhere from a $300 payment all the way up to a $2,000 payment, for more serious fractures. And so this benefit would be there to support you in, if you had a coma, a concussion, you had to take a trip to the emergency room. You'll see that there's also, if you had to ride in an ambulance, if you've had that experience, it's really expensive. So you can actually see the ambulance cost would be, you'd get a flat payment for whether you were in a ground ambulance or in an air ambulance. And so similar to the previous example, there's set payouts for each type of injury you could have. And you could buy either the low plan where the payouts are set at a little bit lower, or the high plan where the payouts are set a little bit higher. And you'll see that there are serious amounts that you can get. So one would be in a coma. If unfortunately you had an accident that puts you in a coma, on the high plan, you could get up to a $10,000 payment to help offset any expenses that come from that coma. So the amount of monthly premiums you see are listed below. And those, if you elected them for either yourself or spouse, as an example, would be deducted from your Lucera check. if you'd like to look at those. So again, similar to the previous plan, the money comes straight to you regardless of your underlying medical plan, whether you're covered or not covered, but they're really there to help fill in any gaps that maybe those plans sometimes don't cover when these serious events take place. Couple of claim examples just to kind of help understand these is the first one is, a member breaks their leg playing pickleball. Pickleball is very popular right now with both people and orthopedic surgeons, So, that required an ambulance, an ER visit, an X-ray, 10 days of rehab, and two physician appointments. So, it was expensive. It was a little over $1,500 expense for that member. They had the low accident plan, and the plan paid that member $2,750 for all the different ambulance, ER, break. So because of all those, they were able to actually come out net ahead, $1,180. And so that cash payment was made to that member, and they used it to offset any expenses they had. Second example is, kind of what we talked about earlier, a car accident, placed in a coma. They break a leg, fracture skull, rib, and hip, serious car accident. That was ambulance, X-ray, 10 days in the hospital, 30 days of physical therapy, $21,000, out-of-pocket expense, really high. Where do you come up with those extra funds? That's not something most people plan for. The accident plan, because of all these serious injuries, actually pays out $27,200 because, again, each break paid out, the ambulance paid out, the X-rays were covered, and at the end, there's a $5,500 and change, net to the member. So that is an example of a really serious accident, and you can see how the accident plan on the high plan really still stepped up and covered a lot of different injuries. And the last example is, member's grill explodes during a barbecue. There's third-degree burns. So burns are covered. And as well as, just like the other examples, the ambulance, ER visit, a day in the hospital, and the follow-up physician appointments, there's a payout for each of those type issues that originated from this terrible accident. $1,500 expense turns into, a $2,300 net in the pocket of the member because MetLife pays out that $3,800 benefit. So you can see in each of these examples, whether it's a really serious accident or even a minor one, that you are still going to get a commensurate payout from MetLife that can help offset your expenses. The next benefit is called the critical illness benefit with MetLife. And again, this is an unfortunate one that many have to use. And it's whether you are diagnosed with, cancer, you have Parkinson's, paralysis, stroke. The struggle is, those expenses come with more than just your medical, right? You have to get extensive medical care to be able to take care of those. You have family members or you need outside support. So this benefit pays out significantly more. You can choose a benefit that will pay you out $15,000 if you're diagnosed with one of these things, or $30,000 if you have one of these more serious injuries. One question we get a lot on this benefit is, what if I already have been diagnosed with this benefit? Can I buy this and get the benefit? The answer to that is no on this particular one. So you cannot already have one of these, critical illnesses and then apply for a claim payment, and they will check and see if you had any previous diagnosis. If you don't, though, if you haven't had, say you have a history of cancer in your family and you would like to add additional layer of financial protection, you can actually go in and buy this policy. And if unfortunately you were diagnosed with cancer, it would pay out either the flat $15,000 or $30,000 benefit, depending on which policy you purchased. These rates are age-based, so they do vary. They're not set in stone like some of the other ones, but depending on which age you're in, the benefit center can help you understand how much these would cost for this critical illness benefit. Just a few claim examples like we've done on the other ones is, a member is diagnosed with breast cancer, and, requires regular doctor's appointments, surgery, and chemo. $3,500 a year expense. They get that, $15,000 payout, which can really help drive those expenses down for them personally. The next example is a member has end-stage renal disease and is diagnosed with ESRD. Again, $2,500 out-of-pocket expense each year. They have a $30,000 benefit payment because they buy the high plan. This payment comes in upon the initial diagnosis in full. So it's not scheduled. If you can show it's the initial diagnosis you've had and you did have that diagnosis, then they pay the full amount out. And the final one is members diagnosed with ALS. Again, they have $1,500 a year of annual, deductible out-of-pocket expense on their plans, and they also get the $30,000 payments. You can see these are significant payments, but we know that when you have these critical illnesses, it's not just a one-year hit. You have extensive ongoing expenses. So that larger payment is one time, but can really make a difference if you have one of these critical illnesses unfortunately come up. One question you may, depending on what kind of life insurance you have, we do have a life insurance option through MetLife, which you can buy up to $150,000 of additional life insurance. The Benefit Center can help you get a quote for that. We know that life insurance is super important, and as you age, that can get more and more expensive in the open market. So if you are in the market for more life insurance or what they call accidental death and dismemberment, which is pays a benefit if unfortunately you are killed in an accident or if you are dismembered in an accident, you can buy both of those policies by contacting the RELAC Benefit Center and going out and looking into, is this the right thing for me? So those rates also are age-based, but it is something that you should look at if you are in the market for more life insurance or want to get an additional layer of accidental death protection. The accidental death, as we mentioned, is not just for you. You can buy it for your spouse as well. So we get that questions a lot. You can actually buy up to an initial $500,000 of coverage in $25,000 increments. So you are not stuck with buying just, a $500,000 worth of coverage. You can say, I want 25, 50, 75,000. You can break it out and determine what the right amount of coverage is for you based on the premiums that you are quoted through the Benefit Center. So again, if you're interested in this, I recommend you call the Benefit Center and they can help you quote out the costs for you based on the amount of coverage you'd like. Another great benefit is the MetLife Legal Plan. So the MetLife Legal Plan is a great benefit. It has two options. If you've ever had legal issues, those can be tough, but they can be simple legal issues too. Like I need help drafting a will or have questions about my family trust or I'm in I have a traffic ticket. I don't know really how to get this handled or I have a dispute with my neighbor. What are my options? Whether it's a small or large legal issue, these can be really helpful to help people really kind of know where to go and what to do. So there is either a standard plan or an enhanced plan. The enhanced plan is really going to add an additional layer of helping you find local attorneys. It does not, one question we get a lot is, does it pay for all the legal fees if you have to go to court? The answer on that is no. But what they can do is go through an extensive list of their national network of pre-approved attorneys and really help you find the best option based on your needs. So they have essentially scanned the whole country and for the best specialist in your specific area of law that you would need to based on your situation. So it's almost like a concierge service if unfortunately you would need any legal protection or support. But also there to do things as simple as help you with estate planning and other items like that. Relatively inexpensive for the amount of support you would get. And along those lines is unfortunately, ID Shield was a provider that you all used to offer. MetLife was able to offer a bunch of new enhancements. The ID theft protection is a fantastic benefit to really look at. Unfortunately, there's never been a higher need for ID theft, and you could buy either the standard or the protection plus plan. Either way, it's going to scan key credit bureaus, whether one or three, depending on which plan you offer, and help you get back on your feet if your ID is ever unfortunately stolen. You probably have heard issues of that happening to many members. And it's just something that you should really consider if you want to get that added layer of protection for your identity. And one that, has become really popular is the Met Pet or Met, pet insurance. And so we know that, if you have a fur baby or, any kind of animal out there that, that those vet bills can get really expensive. These plans are based on the type of pet you have, age, but there is a discount available. MetLife is one of the largest providers of pet insurance in the country. So if you have a pet, you're constantly at the vet and you want to look at, is there a way to maybe offset some of those costs? I would recommend getting a quote through the RELAC program and just seeing if it's a good fit for you. One of the things where we're most excited is this new discount program that we've offered. It's now going to give you access as a RELAC member to discounts on retail items with over 20,000 vendors. So that's everything like from Disneyland tickets to, fitness discounts, And the nice thing is you can also let the rest of your family take advantage of this. So, kinder care is on there, but if you have grandkids going through daycare and your kiddos need to get a discount, they could do it through your RELAC, membership. There's a website that's easy to shop. It's like an online mall almost where you can go and pick the type of programs you want, but everything from travel to cruises, travel insurance, discounts on there. And then one of the things, that's neat is there's an auto and home insurance component of that. So if you're struggling to get competitive auto and home insurance, you can get a discount through this same site. And again, this is only available to RELAC members. So if you're thinking about purchasing something, whether it's a retail product to a travel, take a trip, please take a look at this and see if the RELAC discounts can save you some money. And finally, we talked about home and auto insurance, but you maybe have seen this, especially in the state of California, it's been extremely challenging to find competitive auto and home. So through that benefits site that is posted there, you can actually get discounts on all the various individual auto and home providers that are available, and also even have someone to call and get those. So if you're thinking about shopping your auto and home, maybe take a look at this and see if it could save you a little bit of money. We know it's a tough market out there. So RELAC did this to help support their members and their costs. And finally, before we go to questions, I just want to hit home that the RELAC Benefits Center is there for you. It's really meant to be there Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 3, and it can answer any questions you have. So we understand this was a lot to digest, and it's not meant to be all in one go. But when you have the time, take a look at some of the online resources, look at the guides, and give a call to the RELAC Benefits Center where they can sit there for as long as you'd like and answer any questions you might have. So we hope that you've enjoyed the presentation. We hope that you can find a supplemental benefit that can help save you money and be there to support you and your family in the event you have an unfortunate health incident. We know how expensive those can be, and that's why RELAC has built this program to help support you and your financial security. With that, I'll turn it over for any Q&A.
All right. Unfortunately, John did have to leave, so I'll be taking over. So, hello, my name is Drew, and I'm part of the RELAC communications team. I'll be helping with questions. First of all, we want to thank you for that presentation, Tim. It was very informative. I'm sure people have some questions. If you guys want to ask a question, you may raise your hand as a reaction. I'll call on you, or you can type it in chat and ask the question for you. And we do have a question already. So, first is, does the MetLife Vision Plan cover the cost for cataract surgery? For example, is there an extra charge for the surgeon to use a laser for the incision?
Um, there is a discount for LASIK procedures, but cataracts itself would have to be covered under your core medical plan. So the vision plan doesn't cover cataracts, but if you had a LASIK surgery procedure, there would be a discount available that they could help you with.
All right, thank you for that. And there's another one. There's, if I already have a trust with a good attorney in Pasadena, does the legal plan cover the cost of getting our trust updated?
They could give you advice on different attorneys that you could coordinate with. They can give you high-level templates for trust, but if you have a detailed trust in force and you already have an attorney, it would not cover the full cost of a full revamp. What they would do is kind of provide you with best practices, and if you were looking for a new trust attorney because you wanted to be sure that your rates were competitive for the one you have, they'd be able to shop that for you. So it's not a full revamp in that example, but they would be able to help you go through the process of how to do that. Were there any additional questions that popped up and maybe in the chat?
Oh, we do. And you'll be allowed to talk right now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Um, I joined a little late, and I was wondering, can you hear me now? I'm
Yes, we can hear you.
feedback, so I was trying to turn my volume down, and
Mhm.
I wasn't sure if you could still hear me.
No, we hear you perfectly.
Okay, let's say I'm going to the dentist, I'm going to get my eyes checked. My insurance, I submit and then I submit my supplemental RELAC insurance. What happens at that point?
Yep, great question. So most dentists and vision providers are kind of trained to ask if you have a supplemental plan. So what they'll first ask is, say you have the Lacera dental plan, they'll say, who's your core dental provider? And you provide the Lacera information. And then they'll ask you, do you have any other coverages? Do you have any supplemental coverages? And you'd provide the MetLife information if, let's say, you bought the dental plan through MetLife. So they would run it first through the Lacera and they'd say, okay, what's left over for the member? And it could be, let's say, $300. Then they would run that $300 through the MetLife plan, and that would likely, be covered. So then all of a sudden you would go from, instead of getting a $300 bill from your dentist for your portion, you would get nothing, right? They'd say it's all been taken care of. And so when we talk to most people that go to the dentist regularly, there's usually some, depending on what they have to have done, there's typically a cost that comes back to them. So this is really there to help plug that hole or that gap for you that you would no longer have to pay. Any other questions? I do see one in the chat here that says, is there a regular discounted life insurance policy provided through RELAC from MetLife? We do have senior life up to 150,000 that you can purchase. It is discounted through the RELAC program, but the rates are, age tiered. So in order to get that, you would have to just call the benefit center, provide them with your age, and they would run the pricing for you. You also don't have to buy a full 150,000. So you'd first want to figure out how much are you looking for, and then they would be able to run those prices for you. But the prices are discounted with MetLife for RELAC members.
Actually, we do have another one. Question is the $5 monthly fee is the same for all other benefits?
Each benefit, that's a great question. So this is separate from your RELAC membership, expense that you pay to be a RELAC member. And you choose each benefit whether or not, it's the one you want to buy. So the dental plans have one set of premiums. The accident plan has one set of premiums. Vision has its own premium. So each product has its own premiums, but you can buy each product separately. So you can look at it and determine if I want to pay, $20, for that product, then I will just call the benefit center and say, I want to buy that product. And then what you'll start to see is on your Lacera check, in addition to the $5 membership fee that you already pay, you would see the extra $20 come out, but now you'd be getting that product that you purchased. So you would make that decision for yourself, but then whatever you choose, they would add those premiums to your Lacera deduction.
And we do have somebody that has their hand raised, and they'll be allowed to talk right now.
Do the benefits cover us if we are in a different state besides California?
They do. I think it is, we understand retirees move all over the country. And so if you live in another state, you can call in. When you call the benefits center, you do want to just say, this is the state I live in. They'll ask you for your address, and then they will provide all of the benefits that are available, but they are available outside of just California. So that's a great question. What I would recommend is when you call in, just make it clear that you don't live in California, and they will make sure that that's noted in your file. But they will ask for information like address whenever they sign you up if you choose to buy a policy.
All right. There is also another one. Is the MetLife dental plan easier to use than the old Artemis dental plan, which would automatically deny all coverage service until you had to submit multiple times?
Yes, it's far easier. MetLife is a much larger provider, so they have a lot more dentists already in their network. They own their own network, so the dentists are a lot more accustomed to using MetLife than the previous provider. So that makes it a lot easier for members, and we've had some great examples already of members saying, "Yeah, that was really easy. I didn't actually get any hassle from the provider, and I actually didn't even get a bill when I was expecting one."
And there's another person who has a raised hand up. You're allowed to talk.
Hello.
Yep, we can hear
Um,
you.
I had life insurance when I worked for the public defender's office, and when I retired, I bought, I guess, the policy. I continued the policy through MetLife. The premiums are real high. Would it make any difference in that situation if I told MetLife that I'm a RELAC member?
So that's a great question. If you already had a MetLife policy, you'd still want to go through the RELAC Benefit Center who can provide the pricing. And then what you could do is compare that to what you pay today. So um, you would, you know, you would be able to do that. But so you can get the pricing from the RELAC Benefit Center, and then based on whatever policy you have, you could compare it and determine if you want to buy both or get rid of one and add the other. That would just be a personal decision based on what the RELAC Benefit Center provides you as a quote.
And there's a question for Q&A is if I'm having an implant, can I cancel my monthly bill once the treatment plan is completed?
You can typically cancel, but they typically would hold in an extra month's worth of premium. Typically, it takes about 30 to 60 days to cancel the policy. So that would just keep that in mind from the time you cancel a policy.
And there's one in the chat is there supplemental benefits or routine health exam, i.e. copays?
Yes. So, routine health exams, depending on the policy you buy. So, like the accident plan, there are certain of the benefits that you do get a payment if you go get an annual wellness exam or health exam. What I would recommend you do is when you call in to the benefit center, say, I want to understand which of the benefits that are available have a payout for an annual health exam. They will show you which ones have it and how much. So it just depends on which plan you buy, but typically there are several that will pay you a flat payment each year if you go get your annual health exam done and can show proof of that.
And there's another one. Does the vision cover prescription meta glasses?
So there is a prescription frames benefit. We'd have to check on Meta specifically, but typically it's going to just give you a flat allowance. So it's not typically about covering frames or not covering frames, but if you get frames done through a prescription, it is going to provide you that frames allowance. It's a flat fee. So provided as long as it's a frame that's a prescription through your vision provider, that allowance should trigger.
There is a question, as also says, difference between hospital, critical, and accident.
Yeah, this is a great question. So I went through a hospital indemnity benefit, I went through a critical illness benefit, and I went through an accident benefit. So on a high level, let's start with the critical illness. The critical illness is a benefit. It's a flat payout if you get diagnosed with one of those critical illnesses. Whether you go to the hospital, don't go, regardless of what happens, you get a flat payout of either $15,000 or $30,000, depending on, you know, just showing that you were diagnosed for the first time with one of those illnesses. So if you think that's an issue, that's a separate benefit. There is a hospital benefit that you can get where in order to get that benefit, you have to go into a hospital and stay, in an inpatient setting overnight. And so if that happens to you, you get paid out those flat amounts that we talked about. So all that has to happen on that plan is a hospitalization. And then the last one is accident coverage. So if you have an accident, and that can be any kind of accident, but if you have a break, burn, a cut, scrape, there are all kinds of payouts. So the accident coverage, the triggering event is an accident that leads to an ER visit or a break, and each one of those things that happens from that accident pays out a little bit. So hospital is you have to be hospitalized and that pays out. Critical illness is you have to be diagnosed with a critical illness. An accident is an accident has to lead to a certain type of medical expense. You could technically buy the hospital and the accident plan. And if an accident puts you in the hospital, both would pay you. So, but those are the different triggering events for that. What documentation is required to submit for payouts? That's a great question. So the MetLife portal has a claim form that typically requires you to, either show things like an explanation of benefits, what you get in the mail a lot of times from your insurer that shows that you went to the hospital or had an ER visit, or a bill. And a lot of times they'll maybe make you just show that, which facility where you're at, where your dates of service. So there's a claim form. It's can be done online. It can be printed out and sent in, but there's typically a claim form, and then they usually ask for either a bill or an explanation of benefit. Now, the bill it doesn't have anything to do with how much is on that bill or how much is on it. It's just proving that you actually had that happen. So if you went to the hospital, they're going to want to see either a hospital bill or they're going to want to see an explanation of benefits from your insurer. They don't care how much that costs. They just want proof that you went to the hospital. And they may on the form ask you what hospital you're at, what days were you there, and that gets you the pay. Good question on pre-existing illness. For critical illness, there is a pre-existing condition clause on critical illness. So you can't have had a diagnosis prior to buying the policy. Like, for example, if you are diagnosed with cancer, you buy the policy, they're going to look back 12 months and see diagnosis have you had, and if you've had it, they're not going to pay out that benefit. So just know that if you're currently struggling with a critical illness.
We also have two more at the Q&A. So one of them is the dental plan is supplemental to Signia plan provided by Lacera, isn't it?
Correct. Yes. So it's supplemental. So think of your Lacera benefit as the first line of defense with the dentist. That's what gets hit first. Whatever's left over, which there usually is something, or if that benefit runs out, the supplemental kicks in. So it's going to take whatever you would owe, and it's going to cover that part of it up to its own limits. But a lot of times it can plug a good chunk of that gap that maybe you're coming out of pocket after the Lacera plan kicks in.
And the next one is Costco doesn't take Signia Vision Plan. Can you get any reimbursement for optometry exams through MetLife?
So MetLife, does have a national vision. We'll have to double check and we can try to put out a Q&A on specific to Costco. I don't know the answer off the top of my head, but we will do some research and confirm how Costco fits into the overall MetLife Vision network.
And there is someone who has their hand raised. You'll be allowed to talk.
My question is, for the legal benefits, it sounds to me like if you already have a trust or a will in place and you already have an attorney, that legal plan really wouldn't be something that you could use. But is it my understanding that that's more for people who don't have a trust, they don't have a will,
Right.
they need an attorney. And then how does that work? Do they get an attorney that they can sit down with and get those documents together, or do they have to just do that themselves with the help of an attorney?
Like any of these wills or trusts, it really comes down to complexity. So I think if you want a simple will, they can help you walk through it. As you've seen, there's a lot of other online resources that do that, but they can also help you build a simple will. But if you need something that's more extensive or more extensive trust, they can recommend a local trust attorney. Many people don't know a trust attorney, or they may ask a friend, and that person may be good or bad. So they have a network of trust attorneys locally, and they have a lot of times negotiated better rates for the hourlies of those trust attorneys. So if you need help for a specialist, a specific type of attorney, you don't know one, they're a great resource because they've already kind of vetted all of the ones in your area.
Thank you.
All right, I don't see any more in the webinar chat. I'm not sure if there's any more questions in the Q&A.
And oh, Sandra's still. Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Sorry.
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Thanks for taking my questions, Tim. Just back to the vision care and
Yeah.
issue of cataract surgery. Your medical plan will cover your cataract surgery. What they don't cover is additional things like you want the surgeon to use a laser instead of a traditional scalpel. You want to have, different lenses. Like, for example, a lens for astigmatism versus just the regular standard lens that they want to use for you, that's an extra cost. If you want to have eye drops, instead of 3 different eye drops, you want them combined into one, that's another cost. So those are additional costs for cataract surgery. So while the cataract surgery itself is covered by your medical expenses, there's all these additional add-ons that are not covered. So that was really what my question was. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a great question. And think of the vision benefit as being there to help supplement mostly materials expenses. So when you mentioned lenses, like if you have to go get a lens that's a little bit more expensive and you could apply that against the out, but things like eye drops, it doesn't necessarily cover, or actual um, surgical procedures. It's more about frames, lenses, contacts, those are going to be helped to be offset, which are a big chunk of vision expenses, but it's not going to be really as helpful, candidly, in a actual the expenses that come from a medical procedure like cataracts.
Thank you.
There's also in the chat is my MetLife policy offers trust service. Can I also use legal?
Yeah. If you have a MetLife policy that, it may be the same embedded legal service already. So if you already have a MetLife policy that has legal protection services, you may not want to buy an extra one. But the Met law or Met legal protection is, if it's embedded in another policy you have, I would just make sure that we don't want anyone buying 2 policies that do the same thing. So you could, but I would just make sure you compare your current services to the services that are available before you make that decision.
And there's one with their hand raised. You're allowed to talk.
I think you may be on mute, Aviva.
Yeah.
If I wanted to add a vision benefit, how do I do that?
Yep, great question. So if you look on the screen here, or there's the RELAC Benefit Center. So the easiest way to do it is just to call them at the number shown Monday through Friday and explain which benefit you'd like. They will ask you some questions. They will give you the pricing, make sure you're comfortable with it. And then they will give you a form that you'll just have to sign off on. Really what that does is it gives them approval to send it to Lucera and say, Viva wants to buy this vision plan. Here's the price. Start deducting it out of her next, Lucera check. And that's with your approval, of course. So once that's all done, the check starts deducting. Then we submit it to MetLife and you get your policy information in the mail and you've got your vision plan. So if you're interested, I would say for step 1 is to call the RELAC Benefit Center and have them walk you through it one more time, because they can spend, additional time with you. You can ask them a million questions if you want. And then they can get you set up if it's something you're still interested in.
Thank you.
There is one at the Q&A. Is it true that dental plan is cradle benefits?
Can you say that one more? Is it true that the dental plan is critical benefits?
Or cradle benefits? Would you wanna the person who asked the question, would you wanna emphasize on that? You could say it in the chat also. You don't have to put it in the Q&A.
Yeah, sorry, maybe I just need that to be clarified a little bit. I'm not seeing any more questions in the webinar chat. Not sure if
It
there's any more.
said cradle benefit.
Cradle?
Cradles. Correct. Cardles?
Can you spell it?
CARDLES benefits.
Cardles. I'm not familiar with that term for dental benefits. So
Oh, cardless.
sorry?
Cardless benefits.
Cardless. Oh,
Okay.
yes, it is cardless. So you wouldn't have to have a MetLife card. They can typically look you up with your social security number and you just provide, just like that's how most dentists do it. Very few dental providers are giving physical cards out anymore. Dentists are usually just asking for the basic information they would normally ask for. Then they look you up in the system and they go get it. If you wanted to have a physical card, you can print one off of the MetLife portal. It's a, paper card. It'll have all your basic information on it if you needed it. But usually the dentists are able just to look you up the same way they do typically with other dental plans. Beneficiary, why is it needed for accident? So typically the beneficiary is needed on an accident plan because there is a benefit that pays out if you're killed in an accident. And so in order for that to come through, you would want to have a beneficiary that would be on the other side of that because you're not unfortunately alive to take the benefit payment.
And I think that's it. We are coming up on our hours, so
Okay.
we'll end it here. So wonderful. Thank you for joining us, Tim, and thank you for those who has joined us elsewhere. So if you also have more questions for later on, a question comes up, please refer to the contact that Tim has provided us in this presentation. And if you didn't save this, you could also just ask us at RELAC at our website, either email or the phone. And this has been a RELAC webinar with Tim Brown from NACO, and thank you.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Thank you guys. Take care.